Hello everybody, welcome to Facebook Live Fridays here in the Conscious CEO community. So I am now back in Vancouver. It's been such a magical and restful and peaceful and full, intense time in Mexico, and I want to just give my gratitude to those of you who followed me along and tuned in while I was doing my Facebook Live on top of a hill, and my phone wasn't that stable, but I hope that you got great insights from my stories that I had to share at the time. So now I'm back in Vancouver, and it's so wonderful to see sunshine today, and I know that it's springtime now, so happy early spring, and also happy International Women's Day. I know that was yesterday. Just getting back into the swing of things, and I definitely want to see some of you at our upcoming workshop on March 19th, and I'll talk more a bit about that later. So today's topic, we're still in the theme of sales for the month of March, and today's topic is all about the fears, and I would even say lies, that we tell ourselves about sales and how to overcome them. And this will probably form the basis of an article that will come out early next week, but for now I'm just going to share based on my experience working with CEOs and entrepreneurs, what are some of the most common fears that we're holding within ourselves that are showing up in our business, that can very easily, we can shine a light on them and then overcome them, transform them. Last week, I was in Mexico, and I shared about my experience getting roped into a timeshare presentation and what we can learn from the more, I would say, traditional sales tactics that involve very strategized, very controlled mechanisms to essentially create a certain experience for the customer, and a very systematized way of attracting customers and retaining customers. Kind of reminds me of the whole car salesperson analogy that gives a lot of us the heebie-jeebies. But that's not what we're teaching here. We're teaching about conscious sales, but in order to be more conscious about how we do our sales process, then we need to really be willing to look at some of what's going on inside of us, right? So like bringing consciousness to something essentially is making the what's unconscious, so what we're not aware of, conscious, so that we can change it, right? All right, so the number one most common fear that I hear from leaders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, even founders is, I am not good at sales, right? I am not good at sales. I remember the biggest most perfect example of this was when I met the CEO about a year ago, and he had already been very successful in the IT business. So he had an IT company. He wanted to start a new company that was in the realm of transportation and selling like a new technology for moving, transporting natural gas or something like this. And he was starting up this new company, and he was saying to himself, giving himself the story of, and verbalizing that he was not good in sales. And I heard him say this because we were actually both in the mastermind group together. And I just was observing him tell the story over and over, and how the biggest issue that he had, biggest challenge he had in his business, was the fact that he needed to hire a salesperson, and he needed that quite urgently because he needed to sell this new technology, and because he was not good at sales. And I had to take a look at that, and I encouraged him to take a look at that. And let's just use this example for just a moment, and really invite you, if you have this story going on in your mind, then I invite you to really look at it, like what's going on for you that you're telling yourself the story. And here's the truth, right? I used to also, back way in the day, I used to tell the same story, but it wasn't so much I wasn't good at sales. It was that I wasn't good at the traditional sales. Like, I couldn't bring myself to, do as the car salespeople did, and I thought that was the only way to be successful in sales. And the story that I told myself was, I don't do sales, and it was just the same version of a similar story, right? I'm not good at sales. And the one sort of shift in perspective that I want to invite you to, just plant the seed for, is that if you manage to get here, so some of us are in our 30s and 40s and 50s, some of us are in our 60s, some of us are in our 20s. If you manage to stay alive, all of us were born, right, as babies. All of us were at one point small and helpless and hungry and needing a lot of care and attention in order to survive. So I would say that if you manage to make it 20, 30, 40, 50 years on this planet, then you have done sales. Okay, so we have all sold to. The very first person we've sold to is our mothers or our fathers or whoever our caregivers were, right? We have cried and made a fuss and asked for what we needed, and we've sold to pretty much every single person who has managed to help us stay alive, right? So that's sales. If you ever, in high school, for all the gentlemen out there, if you ever in high school asked a girl out, or if you've ever asked your crush to the prom night and she has said yes, you have been in sales. The truth is, we're selling all the time. We just don't know it. We just don't call it sales, right? So when you find yourself, with the story of I'm not good at sales, you may want to reconsider that and see where, what about your current business and whatever it is that you're selling that you're probably just missing information or missing, a certain, way, a system perhaps, or, maybe you need help with the process so that you can then know what to do and apply yourself that way, right? We can always learn how to sell differently. I mean, we're selling different things all the time. So just because it's new to you, like with this particular CEO, it was new to him. Maybe he's used to selling IT services or IT products, but he's not familiar with this industry. You can always learn. And I would say also that if you're in a startup situation where, you are the CEO and the founder, then you absolutely, before you hire a sales team or even your very first salesperson, I recommend that you get to know your own sales process first. There's nothing more frustrating and in fact unprofitable than hiring a salesperson who you cannot even guide how to do the sales process properly, right? And linking sales with leadership. So whenever you tell yourself, I'm not good at sales, well, what kind of message are you sending to your team? I do meet frequently a number of CEOs who go, yeah, I'm not good at it, therefore I delegate to my sales team. I would say it doesn't matter where you are currently in your business, what stage. You may be at a stage where, yes, you can definitely walk away from the sales activities themselves and have someone like a VP sales or a pretty robust sales team handling that aspect of the business or of the company. At the end of the day, though, some of the best CEOs that I've come across know that a big part of their job is still to be in sales leadership, and anytime that they're out in public, anytime that they're dealing with clients, anytime that they're relating to suppliers and partners, they're always selling. So if you're in business, you're always selling every minute of the day, regardless of what you do. And if you are heading up a sales team, you must exhibit leadership in becoming the best salesperson that you can be, being the captain of that sales ship. So anytime you catch yourself telling a story of some version of I'm not good at sales, just remember the time that you asked your mom or your dad for the toy that you really wanted, or remember the time that you felt brave and put aside your fears and asked someone out on a date. I mean, you've been always doing it. You just need to apply yourself in a different context. The second most common or biggest fear, or I would say lie, that I see entrepreneurs and CEOs tell themselves about sales is that they have this low tolerance. It's like, I cannot tolerate discomfort, right? And it makes them very, very uncomfortable to be in that sales conversation. And in particular, silence. So it's also a behavior, right? I see people, they talk a lot, so they think salespeople are supposed to be talking a lot and delivering the pitch. And I definitely saw this in play at the timeshare presentation. They were talking a lot, even though as part of their sales process, they're actually meant to ask me a lot of questions and have me respond. I definitely saw how there definitely discomfort with silence, right? And just overall discomfort in general. And most people in our Western culture, here in the West and also in the North, or North America, there is a tendency to talk, chatter, and we don't have as much tolerance for silence and just unspoken communication. Just got back from spending 10 days in Mexico, and it's a very different culture there. There isn't a lot of talking. There's a lot of music though. Mexicans do love their music and dancing. I actually found that I didn't need to talk that much. Probably due to the language barrier. But then also I just found that when people did speak, they were essentially speaking with intention and with meaning and not just filling the silence. So if you're in a sales process, if you find yourself, having to do a lot of sales, I would encourage you to rethink discomfort and silence as something that is necessary. Okay, so as something that is normal and natural, especially for those of us that are maybe highly empathic or highly sensitive. I know a lot of us conscious leaders have those traits. It can be easy for us to pick up on the other person's discomfort. When I was in that timeshare presentation, I was absolutely so uncomfortable, right? And I noticed that these salespeople were too. There was an entire sales team trying to sell me this, 5-figure vacation property ownership type package. Very, very, very uncomfortable. We're talking big money here. And so taking the silence and discomfort and seeing it as your friend, as opposed to something that to take you out of the sales conversation, it is supposed to be uncomfortable, right? I remember when I first learned about this, I went, oh, I had a light bulb aha moment. I was someone who, as women, some of us women are raised and socialized to make everybody comfortable and make sure everybody's okay. And in sales conversations, it can get, there can be some heat, and we may be talking about, maybe touching on topics like money and making decisions. Some people get really uncomfortable with making a decision. Your job as the salesperson or as the leader trying to sell your potential client or customer a service or a product, right, that assuming is going to make a difference in their life. It is absolutely your job to stay with the discomfort and use silence as a tool to give them space. Okay, using silence as a tool to give them space. Try not to fill the silence, especially when you've got to the point where you've asked for the sale, right? And I'm assuming you know about these basics of sales. Asking for the sale just means you are ready to, help the potential client or customer make a decision, and you've asked for it, right? So there can be a lot of discomfort in that, right? Which brings me to my third point. So after you've sat in the discomfort with your potential client, really holding that space, because remember, it's just uncomfortable for them too. It's uncomfortable for everybody, right? And it's not meant to be comfortable. Maybe in the beginning it is comfortable when you're having banter and getting to know them and all that, but in my experience, being on both sides of the table, it's always uncomfortable for everybody, right? So just accept it. Just accept that that's the reality and work with it. Which brings me to my third most common fear, is something that I probably don't need to mention because it's so obvious. But there is, in fact, after the ask has been made, or after you've taken your potential client or customer through that process of the fear of rejection, the fear of hearing the word no, right? And and I would admit, even as someone being on the other side, so I've been on both sides. I've been on the salesperson, and I've been the person, potential client or customer. We all have, right? And even as a potential client or customer, sometimes I feel uncomfortable and I don't like saying no, right? So just keep in mind that could be going on for the person across the table as well. But for you as a salesperson, I hear this a lot, is, some version of rejection, right? I don't want to hear the word no. What do I do after I hear the word no? I don't like the feeling of being rejected. I know cognitively and intellectually I shouldn't take it personally, but I do, and I feel rejected on an emotional level. I work so hard, etc., etc. And all of us, as much as we can say to ourselves and convince ourselves that we don't feel rejected, on some small, mild level, we do. So, how do we get past that? How do we overcome that? One of the best tricks and shifts in perspective that I came across that addresses this exact issue is it's like pretending, right? We can pretend, and this works for me, and this works for some of the clients that I've coached, and this works for a lot of people. So in order to get over the fear of or feeling your rejection, you want to pretend that you're passing around. You want to pretend that you're hosting a dinner party, okay? And you're passing around a plate of hors d'oeuvres, right? And this is essentially what it is. You're passing around, you're offering something that's really good and really yummy and that someone needs. So if someone comes to your party and they're hungry, right, they're gonna want some hors d'oeuvres, they're gonna want some bites, they're gonna want something to eat. And why would you deny them that, right? So pretend that your sales process, your product, your services is simply some hors d'oeuvres on a silver platter. And you're the gracious, cheerful, generous hostess going around the dinner party or the cocktail party and offering these hors d'oeuvres. And when you allow yourself to get into this space of I'm offering something that's really yummy and that people need and it's going to make a difference to their life, then you don't have to be attached to whether they say yes or no. Then it's not personal. Let me ask you this. So if you're passing around a plate of hors d'oeuvres, right? If someone says, oh, no, thanks, like, are you going to be personally offended? Probably not, right? If you made those hors d'oeuvres yourselves, maybe you may be personally offended, but people are going to take what they want to take, and they're not going to take what they don't want to take. So it's the same with sales. I just got a thumbs up. I can't see who you are, but great feedback. Thank you. I love this analogy, right? So remember, the next time you're feeling contracted and fearful about the feeling of being rejected, or even just, even mildly, right? Like sometimes you don't want to admit, oh, I felt rejected during that sales conversation, but we all feel it on some tiny level, right? Just pretend that you're going around at a cocktail party, dinner party, and you're offering this plate of yummy hors d'oeuvres, and whether someone takes it or not, it's kind of, it's their business, right? It's their decision. However, one hot tip before I wrap up this Facebook Live is that when someone says no, first of all, it's not personal, right? You're offering them a decision, just like with the timeshare. I said, no, not right now. It's really not for me, but I so appreciate getting all this information, so appreciate your time spending with me, educating me on the different options, and I really, really appreciate it, right? But at the end of the day, I said no. And when someone says no, keep in mind that no stands for next opportunity, right? So next opportunity, nothing to do with you. It just means next opportunity for you to sell to a new potential customer or client, or next opportunity for you to sell to the same potential customer or client, and you just have a way to keep in touch with them, or keep them on your CRM, that's their customer database, and you never know, there might be a next opportunity to sell to them. So because people get hungry again. Right? They might get hungry maybe they're not hungry right now for your service or product, but they may be hungry at a different time, right? So who doesn't like food analogies? Unless you really don't like food, then I feel sad for you. But most people love food analogies. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. I hope you have enjoyed and gotten something out of this teaching. So number one, just to recap, I'm not good at selling is a lie, because you've been selling your whole life, whether you think of it or not. And if you're feeling a little bit insecure and incompetent about your ability to sell, then find out what you need to do to create a process or a system and learn about the thing that you're selling. The more information that you can get about it, the more empowered you can be. Learn about how really it can make a difference in the potential customer or client's life, and just go for it, right? There's no need to tell yourself that story anymore. Second biggest fear is really about being uncomfortable during the sales conversation, and specifically being uncomfortable with silence. So just remember that it's supposed to be uncomfortable. It's not meant to always be smooth sailing. Okay, and so sit with the discomfort, make friends with the discomfort, and use silence as a way to give the potential customer or client space to really consider your offer. Don't talk over them. Just give them some silence, especially after you've made the ask. And then the third teaching is really about changing our perception around this word no. We all want to hear the yes, but sometimes, more often than not, we hear no. And no really is not a bad word, or it's not the end of the world. And as much as, we like to say, oh, I'm good, I don't feel rejected, on some small level we do. So how do we handle that feeling of rejection? We can pretend that we're offering a silver platter full of hors d'oeuvres, and whether someone chooses to have it or not is their decision, and you don't need to feel personally offended at all that they did not choose the hors d'oeuvres this time, but they will be hungry again next time for your offer, whatever it is you're offering. And so keep in mind that no just means, it stands for next opportunity to offer to that same potential client or customer a different time, or a next opportunity to offer it to another potential client or customer. All right, so I do want to remind everybody of a live workshop happening on Monday, March 19th. And that workshop is called The 5 Commitments of Conscious Sales. Get paid to be yourself and make a difference while also boosting your bottom line. And that's happening 6 to 9 p.m. Here at the Conscious CEO Experience headquarters. There is a webinar the very next day. It's on March 20th at 12 noon. I will be posting all the links below. And I want to invite you to share with me, what are your greatest fears about sales, so I can address them. I want to thank you for those who gave me feedback last time. And I want to thank you for tuning in. Until next time, remember, I believe in you, and I believe that you can create extraordinary success on your own terms and from the inside out. Bye. Have a wonderful weekend.